Hey guys, and welcome back to Draw Cartoons. Today I'm going to show you how to draw ears. Now we're going to be working on a character who I've pre-drawn them and they're facing this way. Honestly, this works obviously both ways. They could be facing right, they could be facing left. It doesn't really matter unless the ears are asymmetrical, you know, a different shape on each side. Take note, by the way, that ears do look different depending on which way the character is facing. If they're facing towards you and me, if they're facing towards the viewer, they will look different to how they look if the character is, for example, facing away or to the side. This tutorial is of course going to focus on a character facing to the side just because it means that we are looking directly at the ear so we get a better idea of the shape. So without further ado, I'm going to get started. The ear placement is going to be somewhere around here. It's going to be kind of floating much to the side of the eye and above the back of the jawline. Okay, so you want to be having it in this sort of area here. Right, it's surprisingly far back along the head, more so than you might think. Some people draw their ears like over here, and I'm thinking that's too close. So just for the placement of the ear, you want it kind of above this jawline here. Honestly, with cartoons, there's always leeway. You can experiment with where you want the ear in your cartoon, but that is generally the area where you kind of want it. Now, I'm going to get started by showing you exactly how to place an ear effectively. So this is the very back of the jawline. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw a line straight up. You don't have to do this every single time. It's just to get you used to where ears should be placed on a head when it's facing to the side. So I've drawn a line up from the back of the jawline here. I'm going to draw another horizontal line from more or less, not quite exactly, but more or less the bottom of the eye to the back of the head. These are perfectly straight lines, one going perfectly up and one going perfectly to the left. Now all this is to help us place the ear. So where does the ear go from here? Well, the top of the ear joins just at this point here, above the, you know, where they kind of intersect, right to the top left of that. Okay, so I'm going to start by drawing this question mark shape that goes back, and now I can kind of draw freely. I can draw whatever shape I want for the ear, but I'm going to start with one that's semi-realistic in its shape and design. So here we go. I've drawn this kind of question mark shape to start off with, but then as we get to the bottom, when we draw the lobe, it dips down and comes back up and doesn't quite touch the guideline that I drew earlier. Now, speaking of those guidelines, I can actually get rid of them now, so just going to work on erasing those because we don't need those anymore. They were just to help us visualize where to place the ear. And there we go, we have almost like a silhouette of our ear ready to go. So now we can start designing the interior of the ear because we do only so far have the outer shell of it, so to speak. We've got a lobe and we've got the top bit here. I don't know what it's called, but you know, the top bit of the ear, we'll just call it that. So now for the inside of the ear, you want to start around here and you want to follow the shape that you drew. But at this point, you may want to start designing small imperfections because every ear has very slightly different shapes. So I'm going to make mine come out a tiny bit here before going back in. You see that? Like a little knobble there. Maybe this character's had a piercing in the past, or maybe not. Maybe their ear is simply shaped that way. And as you come towards the lobe, you want to kind of stop. You want to kind of bring it to about there, and then just stop. Now, to draw the rest of the inner ear, I've got a nice handy way of doing it for you. We want to start in more or less the same place again, but we want to start from the line we drew. We want to draw a loop that comes towards the back of the ear, curves, and then comes down, curves again. We get this very interesting shape here. And you might want to also stop here, or you can carry on because you're going to see what I'm going to do in a moment. We have the other part of the ear here which hides the ear hole, the actual orifice of the ear. And you can draw the hole kind of behind this if you want. There's a lot of experimentation to be done here with the shape of the ear. Like I said, you could carry on that line there if you wanted, or you can leave a gap. I think if you leave a gap, it shows a bit of depth in the contours of the ear. And then to finish off, you might want just like a little fold up here because most ears tend to have that sort of shape there. And here we go. There's just a basic ear for you. There's lots of interesting patterns there, and it does get a bit complicated. So if you don't like that shape, if you're not too bothered about drawing one that's semi-realistic in design, don't worry because that's exactly what this tutorial is going to show you to experiment with today. We're going to draw different kinds of ears that are going to be cartoony. in nature. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hide that one. I'm not going to hide it. I'm going to drop the opacity of it so that we have an easy placement for it. I'm going to create a new layer over it just so I have something to work over it non-destructively. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this almost as a template, or like a, I guess a blueprint for the design of ears. And we're going to take its shapes and simplify it to create more expressive and more cartoony ears. So one type of ear type you might have seen before, I'm going to start in the same place, and it's really, really basic. It's just a big C shape. It connects in more or less the same places as you can see, but it's way more rounded, and it looks a bit bigger, right? The way I've drawn it is a bit bigger, but we can really experiment with the size of this. We can make it really big like that. You know, you can make a huge elephant style ear if you want, or you can make it petite, quite small. Children and generally female characters will have an ear that's smaller, but honestly it's up to you. You can design your character the way you want to. So one really easy way of drawing the inside of the ear is to simply draw an arrow, like a little chevron like that. Very, very basic, very cartoony, very quick and easy. You will see, for example, Super Mario has ears designed very much like this one. So there we go, there's just a very quick and easy ear for you, very cartoony style. I'm going to hide that one, I'm going to start again. This one I'm going to go for a bit more expressivism on it. I'm going to start in the same place again. I'm going to bring an ear right out here before bringing it in, and then suddenly, quite sharply, coming out again for a thick lobe. This lobe looks very, I guess, squishy, but certainly very thick. That's what I'm going for here. And again, you can I'm going to draw the inside of the ear again this time, and as I come towards where the ear hole is, I'm going to bring it back out and flick it towards the lobe again. And maybe you want to draw a little curve here or something just to add a bit more detail to the ear, or maybe not. That's entirely up to you. The ear hole is kind of hidden behind that bit there, and what's great about drawing a thick lobe is that it gives you room to draw a piercing, or whatever you want to be there, really. I've tried like a stud piercing, but if you're feeling like challenging yourself, you could add an earring, just like a curve around the earlobe or something like that, right? So again, lots of room for experimentation. If you just know the starting points, if you just know more or less where you want the ear to connect to the head, you can really kind of go to town with it. So this time, I'm going to draw an elf ear, right? So I'm going to start in the same place, and what's going to happen here is I'm going to draw it really, really far back, pretty much to the back of the head. You could even draw it further back than that if you want, before beginning to curve it back down, and the lobe is going to be the same as what we did on the standard kind of human ear, right? But for the elf ear, it's just that the top part of it is really, really extended. It's really, really far out. Again, I'm just going to kind of draw some curves on it to create this idea that the ear is, you know, realistic, I guess, in terms of its design. Again, because it's cartoons, you don't necessarily have to do it that way, but one inner curve like that kind of juts out towards the side can be very effective. The great thing about drawing elf ears is that you can really kind of decorate them with lots of piercings if you want to, or not. You can just leave it exactly like that. You could even erase part of it and draw a notch in it like that. Maybe it's an elf who's been to battle and they lost a little bit of their ear or something like that. Again, lots of room for experimentation. So I'm going to hide that one now. And now I'm just going to play a bit more with stylization. So again, the same kind of starting point. This time I'm going to add a bit more angle to it. So I'm going to see how that curve is a bit sharper, and it's a bit sharper there. Come back towards the lobe. Make the lobe small, but make all my curves more kind of angular and more kind of stylized. There's not as much softness to these edges here. They're almost kind of hard, but that's okay because that's exactly what I'm going for here. And then for the inner ear, you can just kind of draw this sort of shape here. This is another very easy way of drawing the inner ear. May want to kind of taper it off a bit more than I have, but again, you can kind of have this inner ear curve here that's just kind of sat within the larger one. So again, another easier ear. This one's probably a bit bigger than you would want for most kind of feminine characters, but again, it doesn't really matter. It's your cartoon and you can draw it the way that you want to. So another really, really easy ear is similar to one of the first ones we drew, the big kind of C-shaped one. It's the same deal, but a bit more kind of upward angle on it. And then inside we just draw this almost like a, I don't really know how to describe this shape, but it's extremely simplified. Don't want two lines there, that was a mistake. There we go. So two very simple shapes again. You've just kind of got a top-heavy kind of approach to it here, and then a big sticky out bit for where the ear hole is. The ear hole will be about here somewhere. And then just a thick upper part of the ear. I've just realized that's called a helix. I didn't think of it earlier. That's called a helix. So there you go. There's just various ways of drawing ears. I might do a tutorial in the future on how to draw an ear that's facing towards the viewer, you know, as opposed to facing to the side. But I hope that this has been a nice kind of introduction to ears for you. Ears can be complicated, they can be easy. I've just shown you a few ways that I personally think are very easy for drawing ears. But yeah, that's going to be it for this tutorial, guys. If you did enjoy this video, please remember to like it if you did like it, of course. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel by hitting the subscribe button just below the video there for more tutorials just like this one in the future. And with that, guys, I will see you next time.